One day, people just stop asking how you're doing. Not because things got better, because you stopped giving them anything to ask about. You stopped mentioning the gym, even though you're there every morning before sunrise. You stopped bringing up the relationship, right around the time you've quietly decided something about it. And there's a specific kind of lonely in that, surrounded by people who have no idea a part of you is being rebuilt right under their noses. Then, weeks or months later, they find out. The job had already changed. The relationship had already ended, quietly, long before it ended out loud. If that's ever been you, or if it's you right now, here's the strange part. It was never really about secrecy. And by the time this is over, you'll probably see exactly what it actually was. Here's the first piece, and it starts with something researchers have actually measured. Psychologist Peter Gollwitzer at New York University spent years studying what happens when people announce a goal that's tied to their identity. I'm going to write a book. I'm getting healthy. I'm leaving. In one well-known set of studies, he tracked people working toward those goals, some who'd told others about their plans, some who hadn't. The people whose intentions had been noticed by someone else consistently followed through less than the people who kept it to themselves. The compliments arrive, the "wow, good for you," and the brain quietly treats that reaction as a small taste of already having arrived. Gollwitzer called it a premature sense of already possessing the identity you're working toward. Nobody was lying. Being told you're already becoming something can quietly convince a part of you that you already have. Some identities are like wet cement. Let too many people walk across them before they've had time to set, and you'll spend months smoothing out footprints that were never even yours. Think about someone like Daniel, not a real name, but you've probably met a Daniel, who spent 3 years telling anyone who'd listen that he was writing a novel. Every time he brought it up, people lit up. "That's amazing, I can't wait to read it." He never finished the first chapter. Meanwhile, the people who actually finish the thing tend to be the ones who told almost no one, until it already existed. Here's where it gets more personal. There's a very specific fear in attempting something for the first time while someone you love is already good at it. The fear that your first clumsy attempt becomes the story people tell about you. Stanford psychologist Albert Bandura spent decades researching where genuine confidence actually comes from, what he called self-efficacy, your own belief that you're capable of the thing in front of you. One of his central findings was that this belief is fragile in the beginning. It gets built through small, private wins, not public commentary, and even encouraging reactions from other people can shape that belief before it's sturdy enough to hold its own weight. So picture someone like Amara, who decides she wants to become a runner. Her sister has run 3 marathons. If Amara mentions this in week 1, she isn't just risking judgment. She's risking a perfectly kind "have you thought about starting smaller" landing directly on a belief that isn't strong enough yet to survive it. So she runs before sunrise, alone, for months, and only tells her sister after her first race is already on the calendar. And then there's a piece that has less to do with confidence and more to do with control. Quick question. When's the last time something in your life felt like it belonged entirely to you, with no one else's opinion attached to it? For a lot of people who quietly rebuild, that feeling got rare after something happened first: a layoff, an illness, a breakup, a relationship where their choices stopped feeling like their own. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan at the University of Rochester spent years researching exactly this: what people actually need to feel motivated and well, not wants, genuine psychological needs. And autonomy came out as one of the core 3, right alongside feeling capable and feeling connected to others. Autonomy just means the sense that your choices are actually fully yours. So imagine Marcus, laid off 6 months ago, quietly studying for a certification at night after his family's asleep. He isn't hiding it because he's embarrassed. He's hiding it because for the first time in months, this is the one thing nobody gets to weigh in on. No advice, no worry, no "are you sure that's smart right now?" Just his.
There's an even earlier route to some of this, one that usually traces back to childhood, to a lesson learned long before anyone had words for it. Attachment researchers, starting with John Bowlby and extended through psychologist Mary Ainsworth's well-known studies at Johns Hopkins, found that children learn early whether reaching out for support actually works. If it reliably did, most grow up asking for help without a second thought. But if support was inconsistent, there sometimes, absent other times, or answered with more pressure instead of comfort, a lot of children learn a quieter strategy instead. Solve it first, mention it later, if you mention it at all. Think of Priya, the oldest sibling, the one everyone leaned on growing up. Whenever she struggled, her family looked to her for the solution instead of offering one. 20 years later, she still doesn't say a word about a hard week until she's already fixed it. But here's the part that's a little harder to admit. Sometimes we say we're protecting our peace, when what we're actually protecting is ourselves from being seen fail. Privacy can protect growth. It can also become a place where fear quietly disguises itself as wisdom. There's a version of this that stays protective, and a version that quietly turns into isolation, where the silence stops guarding something fragile and starts avoiding help altogether, even the good kind. Neither version makes you broken, but it's worth knowing, quietly, which one you're actually in. And then there's the piece that ties the rest of it together. Northwestern psychologist Dan McAdams has spent his career studying what he calls narrative identity, the idea that you don't just live your life, you're constantly writing it, deciding which chapters matter and where the breaks go. Most people, given the choice, would rather hand someone a finished chapter than let them watch it get written. Because the messy middle, the doubt, the false starts, the plan that didn't survive contact with reality, doesn't match the story they're building about who they're becoming. Take Sophia. She spent 8 months quietly deciding to leave her marriage before she told a single person outside of it. By the time anyone knew, it wasn't a decision anymore. It was already a finished chapter. Months later, when Sophia finally told people, everyone assumed it had happened fast. They never saw the hundreds of quiet evenings that actually built it, the version of her that only existed after everyone else had gone to sleep. And that's the part most people miss. The people who rebuild quietly aren't hiding from the world. They're hiding from the version of themselves that still needed the world's permission to change. So if you've ever gone quiet before a big shift, if you've ever waited to tell people until it was already done, here's what was actually happening. You weren't disappearing. Your motivation, your confidence, your sense of control, your trust in yourself, an ending you hadn't written the middle of yet, every one of those needed privacy before it could survive an audience. Maybe your silence wasn't proof that something was wrong. Maybe it was proof that, for the first time, you were becoming someone without needing anyone's permission to do it. If this made sense of something in your own life and want to go deeper, subscribe. I'd genuinely appreciate it. There's a lot more of this coming.